The massive space station floated silently in the void between star systems, its crystalline structures gleaming like jewels against the darkness. Inside the main council chamber, hundreds of alien beings gathered around floating platforms, their excited chatter filling the air with sounds no human ear had ever heard. Ambassador Veltara smoothed her flowing silver robes and checked the datapad one more time. The readings were clear. Another peaceful species had requested membership in the Galactic Council. After 300 years of expanding their alliance of civilized worlds, first contact had become almost routine. The species calls themselves humans, she announced to her assistant, a tall blue-skinned being named Keth who carried an armload of welcoming gifts. They come from a world called Earth in the outer spiral arm. All our scans show typical herbivore development patterns. Keth nodded, his large round eyes reflecting the soft lighting of the chamber. Social creatures, no signs of aggressive expansion, limited to their home system until recently. Standard development for a species ready to join galactic society. Around them, delegates from dozens of worlds prepared for the ceremony. The Villani species, known for their gentle nature and skill in diplomacy, always led first contact procedures. Their soft voices and calm movements helped new species feel welcome. The insectoid cricks from the northern galaxies buzzed quietly among themselves, comparing notes on human biology. The plant-like Thornians swayed gently, their leaf-covered heads turning toward the viewing screens that would show the arriving ship. Another herbivore species, mused Elder Sectar, her ancient voice carrying centuries of wisdom. How refreshing. The galaxy needs more peaceful voices. The viewing screens flickered to life as the human vessel dropped out of hyperspace. Several delegates tilted their heads in confusion. The ship looked wrong somehow. Instead of the smooth, organic curves that most peaceful species preferred, this vessel had sharp angles and thick plating. Dark metal covered its hull like armor, and strange protrusions jutted out at regular intervals. Unusual design choices, Keth muttered, zooming in on the ship's details. Perhaps their metallurgy is still developing. Veltara studied the vessel more closely. The hull appears to be reinforced. Multiple layers of, is that battle armor? Impossible, Elder Sectar said with a gentle laugh. No herbivore species has ever developed military-grade ship construction. They must simply prefer sturdy designs for deep space travel. The ship slowly approached the docking bay, and delegates could see smaller vessels detaching from its sides, escort craft that moved with precise formation flying. Again, this seemed odd for a peaceful species, but the council members dismissed it as overcaution from a species new to space travel. Attention, Galactic Council, came a voice through the communication system. The universal translator worked smoothly, converting the alien sounds into language each species could understand. This is the Earth vessel New Soul requesting permission to dock. We carry the human diplomatic mission. The voice was calm, measured, and perfectly polite. Veltara smiled with relief. Granted, New Soul. We welcome you to Council Station Alpha. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. As the ship settled into the docking bay with mechanical precision, hundreds of delegates gathered at the viewing windows to catch their first glimpse of the humans. The airlock cycled through its safety procedures, and finally, the doors opened with a soft hiss. The first human to emerge was tall and lean, wearing a perfectly fitted black suit that seemed to absorb light. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his face showed the calm expression of someone accustomed to important meetings. Behind him came 5 more humans, all similarly dressed, all moving with the same controlled grace. Beautiful, whispered a Thornian delegate. Look how they coordinate their movements. But something about that coordination made Veltara's skin prickle with unease. The humans moved like a unit. Each one seemed aware of exactly where the others were at all times. Their eyes, she noticed with a start that their eyes all faced forward, like the extinct predator fossils in her planet's museums. The lead human stepped onto the platform and bowed deeply, a gesture of respect that had been transmitted to Earth months earlier. His smile was warm and genuine as he straightened. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, he said, his accented voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I am Ambassador Kim Day of the United Earth Nations. We come in peace, seeking friendship among the stars. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the gathered aliens. The formal words, the respectful tone, the peaceful intentions, everything proceeded exactly as expected for a civilized first contact. Yet as Ambassador Day spoke, Veltara found herself watching his eyes. They never stopped moving. Even as he smiled and gestured to his companions, those dark eyes constantly scanned the chamber, noting exits, counting delegates, measuring distances. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but unmistakably there. "We bring greetings from our world," continued one of Day's companions, a woman with kind features who introduced herself as Li So. "And gifts from our people to yours." The gifts were presented with ceremony, works of art, samples of music, recordings of human culture. Everything appeared normal, civilized, exactly what a peaceful species would offer. But Veltara noticed how the humans positioned themselves during the presentation. Without seeming to do so deliberately, they had spread out across the platform in a pattern that covered all angles of approach. Keth leaned close to her ear. "Something feels different about them," he whispered. Veltara nodded slightly, still watching as Ambassador Day accepted the council's welcoming gifts with perfect grace. The humans seemed genuinely pleased, genuinely peaceful, genuinely diplomatic. So why did she feel like prey animal that had just caught a predator's scent on the wind? The ceremony continued smoothly, but deep in her mind, an ancient instinct whispered warnings that made no logical sense. These beings claimed to come in peace, showed every sign of civilization, and followed every protocol correctly. Yet something about the way they smiled made her want to run. The grand dining hall of Council Station Alpha had been decorated with floating crystals and gentle music for the welcoming feast. Hundreds of alien delegates took their places at the curved tables, each designed to accommodate different body types and dietary needs. The air smelled of processed nutrients and synthetic flavors that mimicked the natural foods of dozens of worlds. Ambassador Kim Dae and his team entered the hall wearing fresh diplomatic suits, their black fabric seeming to absorb the soft lighting. The humans moved together in that same coordinated way that had caught Veltara's attention earlier. She watched from her position at the main table as they took their assigned seats with perfect manners. "Such polite beings," murmured Elder Sektar, her ancient face creasing into a smile. "Notice how they wait for others to be seated first." But Keth, sitting beside Veltara, tilted his blue head thoughtfully. "Do you see how they chose their chairs? Each human can see the entire room from where they sit." Veltara looked more carefully. He was right. Without making any obvious requests or seeming to plan it, each human had ended up with a clear view of all entrances, exits, and gathering points. It could have been coincidence, but the pattern seemed too perfect. The feast began with traditional council ceremonies. Each species shared something from their culture. The Thornians grew small flowering vines on the spot, the Cricks performed a humming dance, and the crystal beings from Nexus Prime created light patterns in the air. When the humans' turn came, Li So stood gracefully and sang a haunting melody in their native language. Her voice was beautiful, but something in the song made several prey species shift uncomfortably in their seats. "What was that song about?" asked a nervous Villani delegate. Li So smiled sweetly. "An old Korean folk song about a hunter waiting patiently in the forest." The table fell silent for a moment. Hunting was not a concept most galactic species understood beyond ancient history lessons. "Your people hunted?" Elder Sektar asked carefully. "Long ago," Ambassador Day replied smoothly. "We have evolved past such primitive needs." But as he spoke, his eyes moved across the room again, and Veltara realized what had been bothering her. The humans never stopped watching. Even when they laughed at jokes or listened to speeches, part of their attention always remained alert, scanning, measuring. It was the behavior of creatures that had learned never to feel completely safe. The main course arrived, beautifully prepared plant matter and synthetic proteins shaped to look like natural foods. The human delegation accepted their plates with grateful smiles and began eating with proper utensils. Everything seemed normal until Ambassador Day asked his innocent question. "This is quite delicious," he said, chewing thoughtfully. "Might we inquire about protein sources? On Earth, we find that balanced nutrition requires various food groups." Several delegates stopped eating. The Crix's compound eyes focused sharply on the humans. "Protein sources," repeated a Thornian, her leaf-covered face rustling with confusion. "You mean, synthetic alternatives?" Park Minute, another human diplomat, dabbed his mouth politely with his napkin. "We're quite adaptable in our dietary needs. Our species developed the ability to process many different types of organic matter." The way he paused before saying organic matter sent a chill through the herbivore delegates. What exactly did that mean? "On Earth," continued Li So with that same gentle smile, "we learned to make use of whatever nature provided. Our ancestors were very resourceful." A small Villani delegate at the far end of the table made a squeaking sound of distress. The conversation had taken a turn that touched on concepts these peaceful beings preferred not to think about. In their safe, civilized galaxy, food came from processing plants and synthetic creation. The idea of making use of whatever nature provided suggested things their minds could barely grasp. Ambassador Day seemed to notice the discomfort and quickly changed the subject. But tell us about your agricultural methods. We're fascinated by how your civilization manages food production on such a massive scale. The conversation shifted to safer topics, but the damage was done. Velandeskutara watched as whispered conversations started at tables throughout the hall. The humans continued eating and chatting politely, seemingly unaware of the growing unease around them. But she noticed something else. When a serving robot malfunctioned and began sparking near the Thornian table, every human in the room turned toward it instantly. Their reactions were faster than any other species present, their bodies tensing as if ready to move. The moment passed quickly as maintenance beings fixed the problem, but for just a second, Veltara had seen something else beneath their diplomatic masks. "Did you see that?" Keth whispered to her. "Their reaction time," she whispered back. It was like they were expecting trouble. As the evening continued, more small details accumulated. The way the humans automatically noted when delegates left their seats. How they seemed to know exactly which beings were approaching from behind without turning around. The casual way Lee So mentioned that humans kept carnivorous animals called dogs as beloved companions, causing several delegates to nearly choke on their nutrient paste. Carnivorous companions? Elder Sektar asked faintly. "Oh yes," Park Minute said cheerfully. "Very loyal creatures. They have excellent hunting instincts." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Hunting instincts. Loyal. The words painted a picture that made herbivore minds reel with implications they preferred not to consider. As the formal dinner ended and delegates began to leave, Veltara found herself walking beside Ambassador Day toward the exit. His manner remained perfectly diplomatic, his smile warm and genuine. But when a maintenance worker dropped a tray of dishes behind them, his reaction was immediate and controlled, a slight turn of the head, a quick assessment of the situation, then a return to normal conversation. It happened so fast that most beings would have missed it. But Velandeskutara was beginning to understand that with humans, the most important things happened in those tiny, almost invisible moments between their perfectly civilized words. The cultural exchange chamber buzzed with nervous energy as alien delegates gathered around the large viewing screens. Ambassador Kim Dae stood calmly at the center podium, his hands folded behind his back, while his team prepared their presentation on Earth's history and civilization. "We thought it would be helpful," Dae said with his gentle smile, "to share some background about our world and how our species developed." Velandeskutara settled into her floating chair, trying to ignore the growing unease in her stomach. The events of the previous evening had left many delegates whispering questions about these strange beings who spoke of hunting and carnivorous companions. Perhaps this presentation would put their fears to rest. The first images appeared on the screens: beautiful landscapes of Earth, vast oceans, green forests, and snow-capped mountains. The delegates relaxed slightly. This looked like any peaceful world, full of natural beauty and harmony. "Earth is our home," Lee So explained, her voice warm with affection. "A world of great diversity, where our species learn to adapt to many different environments." The images shifted to show early human settlements. Simple villages, people working together, growing crops, and building homes. Everything looked perfectly normal for a developing civilization. "Your ancestors appear quite peaceful," observed Elder Sektar with relief. "They were survivors," Park Minute replied carefully. "Earth taught them to be resourceful." The next series of images showed human expansion across their world. Maps displaying how humans had spread from one continent to all others, covering every landmass on the planet. The speed of this expansion made several delegates shift uncomfortably. "You colonized your entire world?" asked a Crix delegate, her compound eyes reflecting confusion. "Most species develop in limited regions for thousands of years. Humans are natural explorers," Ambassador Day explained. "We have strong instincts to move into new territories." Velandeskutara noticed he said instincts rather than curiosity or desires. The word choice seemed important somehow. The presentation continued with images of human technology development. Tools, weapons, ships, and machines. But as the timeline progressed, the alien delegates began to see patterns that disturbed them. Every human advancement seemed connected to competition, conflict, or conquest. "These are military vehicles," a Thornian delegate asked, pointing at images of human tanks and fighter aircraft. "Humans developed advanced metallurgy and engineering through various challenges," Park Minute said diplomatically. "Challenges?" pressed the Thornian. Lee So stepped forward, her expression growing serious. Our species faced many difficulties throughout history. We had to compete for resources, territory, and survival. The word compete hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Competition was not a concept most galactic species understood. In their civilized worlds, resources were shared, territories were respected, and survival was guaranteed through cooperation. Compete with what? Elder Sektar asked, though her voice suggested she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. The screen displayed a new image, a chart showing Earth's biodiversity over time. The line dropped sharply as human civilization advanced, with thousands of species marked as extinct. Your world lost many life forms, observed a crystal being, its voice ringing like wind chimes. Was this due to natural disasters? Ambassador Day's smile never changed, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Not exactly natural disasters, no. The implications hit the delegates like cold water. The herbivore species of the galaxy had developed on worlds where they lived in harmony with other life forms. The idea that one species could cause the extinction of thousands of others was almost incomprehensible. You mean your people? Velandeskutara began, then stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Our ancestors were very effective at claiming territory and resources, Lee So explained gently. Sometimes other species could not adapt to the changes humans brought. A small Villani delegate made a sound of distress. But surely once your civilization advanced, this stopped. Park Minute activated the next part of the presentation. Images appeared of human cities, modern technology, and current Earth civilization. Oh, it did slow down, he agreed. We learned better management techniques. Management? The Crix delegate leaned forward. You manage other species. We call it conservation now, Ambassador Day said. We maintain populations of various creatures for different purposes. The screens showed images of human zoos, farms, and nature preserves. To the human delegates, these probably looked like evidence of their species' growth and wisdom. To the herbivore aliens, they looked like something much more disturbing. You keep other species in controlled environments, Elder Sekundaskutar said slowly, as if trying to understand an impossible concept. For their protection, Lee So assured her. And for ours. The next images showed human recreational activities. Humans climbing mountains, diving in oceans, racing vehicles, and engaging in various sports. Again, these seemed innocent enough until Park Minute began explaining them. Humans enjoy challenging themselves, he said. We have strong instincts for competition and pursuit activities. One image showed humans with large fish they had caught. Another showed hunters posing beside fallen deer. The alien delegates stared in stunned silence as they realized what they were seeing. This is recreation for your people, whispered a Thornian, her leaves rustling with shock. Some humans still enjoy traditional activities, Ambassador Day confirmed. Though we regulate such practices now. The presentation concluded with images of modern Earth, cities, space stations, and the diplomatic vessel that had brought them here. Everything looked advanced and civilized, but now the delegates understood the foundation it was built upon. Questions? Lee So asked politely. The chamber was completely silent. Hundreds of herbivore beings sat frozen in their seats, trying to process what they had learned. These pleasant, well-dressed diplomats represented a species that had conquered an entire world, eliminated thousands of other life forms, and still engaged in something called hunting for entertainment. Velandeskutara found her voice first. Your people, evolved as predators. Ambassador Day's smile was patient and terrifying. We prefer to think of it as being very good at problem solving. The emergency council session had been called for the middle of the night cycle, when most delegates should have been resting. But sleep was impossible after the cultural presentation. In the dim lighting of the auxiliary chamber, 27 representatives from different species huddled together, their voices low and urgent. Queen Mother Sekran of the Zephyrite hive dominated the center of the group, her multiple arms gesturing sharply as she spoke. Unlike the gentle herbivore species, the Zephyrites were one of the few insectoid races that had evolved some aggressive traits, though they used them only for defense. We cannot allow these predators into our civilization, she buzzed, her compound eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. Did you see their presentation? They destroyed their own world's ecosystem. They hunt for pleasure. They keep other species as prisoners. Elder Sektar shook her ancient head slowly. But they seem to have evolved past such behaviors. Ambassador Day spoke of regulation, of conservation. Conservation. Queen Sekran's voice rose to an angry hum. They conserve other species like we conserve food supplies. for future use. A nervous Villani delegate wrung his small hands. Their ship design makes more sense now. All that armor plating, those weapons systems they claimed were defensive. Exactly, agreed a crystal being, its voice chiming with distress. We welcomed them thinking they were like us. But they are something else entirely. Velandeskotara had remained silent during most of the discussion, but now she spoke up. What are you all suggesting? That we deny them membership? Tell them to leave. Queen Sekran turned her full attention to her. I am suggesting we eliminate the threat before it can spread to the galaxy. Better to act now than wait until they bring more ships, more of their kind. The chamber fell silent. In 300 years of galactic civilization, no species had ever discussed harming a diplomatic mission. The concept was so foreign that most delegates could barely understand what was being suggested. You mean, attack them? Whispered the Villani delegate. I mean protect ourselves, Queen Sekran replied firmly. My engineers have studied their ship. One well-placed system failure during departure, and their vessel will suffer catastrophic engine damage. It will appear accidental. The galaxy will mourn the tragic loss of first contact, and we will be safe. Elder Sektar's face went pale. This is murder you are describing. This is survival, the Queen corrected. Did you not listen to their presentation? These beings conquered their entire world. Every other species on their planet either went extinct or was enslaved for their purposes. Do you want that to happen here? The debate continued for hours, but fear slowly won over ethics. By the end of the session, 17 species had agreed to the plan. The humans would depart the station tomorrow, and their engines would fail during the transition to hyperspace. No evidence would remain. The galaxy would continue its peaceful existence. Queen Sekran dispatched her best engineers to the docking bay where the human ship waited. They worked quickly and quietly, introducing subtle flaws into the fusion containment system. When the engines engaged for departure, the cascading failure would tear the vessel apart within minutes. The next morning, the formal farewell ceremony proceeded exactly as planned. Ambassador Day and his team stood in the main docking bay, accepting final gifts and making polite speeches about future cooperation. They showed no signs of suspicion, no indication that they knew anything was wrong. It has been an honor meeting all of you, Ambassador Day said, bowing deeply to the assembled delegates. We look forward to beginning formal membership discussions soon. Velandeskotara watched his face carefully. The same calm expression, the same gentle smile, the same dark eyes that never stopped watching. But something felt different today. There was a quality to his stillness that reminded her of a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The human team boarded their vessel with the same coordinated movements they had shown throughout their visit. The docking bay doors sealed, and the ship began its departure sequence. On the viewing screens, delegates watched as the new Soul moved away from the station toward the hyperspace jump point. Estimated time to engine failure. Queen Sekran asked quietly. 30 seconds after hyperspace engine activation, her engineer replied. The human ship reached the jump point and began charging its hyperspace drive. The energy readings climbed steadily. Any moment now, the sabotage systems would overload and the threat would be eliminated. The ship jumped to hyperspace successfully. For a moment, confusion filled the observation deck. Then emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. Security screens showed armed figures moving through the corridors with impossible speed and precision. The humans had never left. Impossible, breathed Queen Sekran. The ship departed. We saw it. You saw what we wanted you to see, came a calm voice from the chamber entrance. Ambassador Day walked in wearing not his diplomatic suit, but some kind of dark tactical gear. Behind him came his team, no longer pretending to be peaceful cultural attachés. Their movements were different now, fluid, coordinated, and absolutely terrifying in their efficiency. We detected the sabotage 3 days ago, Day explained conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Quite clever, actually. Your engineers are skilled. We thought it best to allow the situation to develop so we could address any concerns comprehensively. Lee So appeared from another entrance, escorting the captured Zephyrite engineers. They were unharmed but looked completely bewildered by how quickly they had been overwhelmed. The ship you watched depart was a decoy, Park Minute added helpfully. We launched it while our actual vessel remained docked. Simple misdirection. Queen Sekran stared at the humans in shock. How long have you known? Ambassador Day's smile was patient and ancient. We are very good at reading body language, Your Majesty. Your species broadcasts hostile intent quite clearly once we learn to recognize the signs. The trapped delegates looked around desperately for escape routes, but somehow the humans had positioned themselves to cover every exit without seeming to try. Now then, Day continued pleasantly, shall we discuss why you felt it necessary to attempt murder rather than simply declining our membership application? The main council chamber had never felt so small. Every delegate who had attended the emergency session now sat in their assigned seats, surrounded by the soft hum of the station's life support systems. But the usual gentle atmosphere had been replaced by something else entirely, the quiet tension of prey animals who had suddenly realized they were in the presence of an apex predator. Ambassador Kim Dae stood at the central podium, still wearing his tactical gear from the night's events. His team remained positioned around the chamber's perimeter, not threateningly, but with the same casual awareness they had shown from the beginning. The difference was that now everyone understood what that awareness meant. Honored delegates, Day began, his voice carrying the same diplomatic tone he had used throughout their visit. We find ourselves in an unusual situation. It seems there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about Earth's intentions. Queen Mother Sekran sat rigidly in her chair, her compound eyes fixed on the human ambassador. The other conspirators looked equally uncomfortable, while the delegates who had opposed the assassination plot seemed torn between relief and terror. We want to address some concerns that have clearly been troubling you, continued Liso, stepping forward with her hands clasped peacefully behind her back. First, regarding our ship's defensive capabilities, yes, human vessels are heavily armed. We learned long ago that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. Elder Sektar found her voice first. But you said you came in peace. We did, Park Minute replied calmly. Peace and preparedness are not opposing concepts for humans. We hope for the best while planning for the worst. Velandeskotara watched the human delegation carefully. Even now, after demonstrating their tactical superiority, they maintained the same diplomatic manners they had shown from the beginning. The revelation that they had been prepared for betrayal from the start was somehow more unsettling than their military capabilities. Your presentation yesterday, whispered a Thornian delegate, all those extinct species on your world. Ambassador Day nodded seriously. A tragic chapter in our development, yes. But not an uncommon one. Every successful species goes through a period of rapid expansion and resource competition. The difference is what happens afterward. He activated the chamber's main display screen. Images of modern Earth appeared, cities integrated with natural preserves, vast ocean sanctuaries, carefully managed ecosystems where both human civilization and wildlife thrive together. We learned from our mistakes, Liso explained. Destruction is easy. Construction is much more difficult. But construction is also more profitable. The word hung in the air with implications that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. What do you mean by profitable? Asked a crystal being, its chimes reflecting nervous energy. Park Minute gestured to the images of Earth's restored ecosystems. A healthy environment produces more resources over time than a destroyed one. A thriving population of other species provides more opportunities than extinct ones. We discovered that the most successful predators are not those who kill everything, but those who manage their environment carefully. Queen Sekran finally spoke, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. You are saying you want to manage us. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Day looked directly at her, his expression thoughtful and completely without malice. Your Majesty, what we are saying is that management is already happening. You have built something remarkable here, a peaceful civilization spanning thousands of worlds, hundreds of species living in harmony. But you built it in a galaxy that contains dangers you have never had to face. He activated new images on the screen, deep space scans showing massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge, readings that suggested civilizations far more aggressive than anything the Council had ever encountered. These readings were included in the initial data package we transmitted before our arrival, Day explained. Our long-range sensors detected them during our journey here. You have neighbors, honored delegates. Neighbors who do not appear to share your peaceful philosophy. The chamber erupted in whispered conversations as delegates absorbed this information. Many species had never considered that threats might exist beyond their carefully maintained borders. Are you threatening us? Elder Sektar asked quietly. On the contrary, Liso replied with genuine warmth. We are offering to help you survive what is coming. Earth does not want to conquer the galaxy. We want to preserve it. After all, what good is being the apex predator in an empty ecosystem? Velandeskotara stood slowly, her legs unsteady beneath her. You knew about the assassination attempt from the beginning. You could have simply left, or called for help, or exposed the plot immediately. Instead, You let it proceed. Why? Ambassador Day's smile was patient and ancient. Because we needed you to understand what you were dealing with. Not just our capabilities, but our intentions. You needed to see that we could eliminate threats efficiently when necessary, and choose restraint when possible. He gestured to the captured conspirators, who sat unharmed despite having attempted murder. Every being who participated in last night's events is alive and uninjured. This was not an accident. It was a choice. Park Minute stepped forward. Humans learned long ago that fear is temporary, but respect lasts forever. We could have demanded membership through strength, but partnerships built on fear do not endure. So what happens now? Asked a small Villani delegate. Ambassador Day looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. Now you vote. Not on whether to admit Earth to your council, but on whether you want Earth as a partner in protecting what you have built. He paused, letting the implications settle. Because those neighbors at the galaxy's edge are moving this way. And when they arrive, you will need to decide whether you want humanity standing with you, or watching from a safe distance while your peaceful civilization learns what real predators look like. The vote was unanimous. But as the delegates filed out of the chamber, each one understood that their galaxy had just changed forever. They had invited the apex predator to join their ecosystem, and there would be no going back.